So the next thing that I want to talk about is planning. This is how do you save time? How do you do more with less lesson? And one of the ways that I found that I could get more done was to plan ahead of time. So we started using storyboards and script writing because when you start to get demand for creating more content, you have less time to do it in. And one way to save yourself time, it might not seem like you're saving yourself time at first, is to plan ahead of time. Plan things out as much as you can. Think about what kind of shots you want to get, what images you want to include, and it will actually save you time in the long run. And this next step is another thing about saving time, is reusing and repurposing. So one thing that we found was we started creating content where the professor would actually mention specific deliverables or specific time-sensitive information, and we couldn't use it in another course. So even though we wanted to, so we had to do some fancy editing after the fact to make it work. When you're creating the content, keep in the back of your mind, is there anything in here that won't make sense if we reuse it somewhere else? Or if in a year from now, this information goes out of date. So this next lesson, keeping it short, this is one about how do you create content that is engaging for students, that they're actually going to want to watch and not just skip through. One thing that we do is we create content that's 12 to 15 minutes total length, and then we chunk it down into 1 to 2 minute segments. So it's really short, digestible chunks that students can easily get through and retain the information after they finish watching it. And I have some interesting statistics to share about this too. We call them learning modules. We have a 82% playthrough ratio, right? So that means that about 82% of the students who start watching this video content watch it all the way through. So for me, I think this is pretty impressive because as a student, it's hard to watch online video. And I think because of the fact that we make it so short, people are able to stay engaged through it all. So here's an example of one of the video learning modules that we created for the Fast Track MBA program. And you can see it's in a playlist format right inside of our Blackboard LMS. When a student comes in to watch it, they just click the play button and they can start watching the video right within Blackboard. Another thing that's cool about it is that you can see, as a student, you can see what the time, what the duration is. So before you even get into, committing to the time to watch it, you can know, oh, this is going to take me this amount of time. And another thing that you can do is you can skip over topics. So if you already know, oh, I know this one, I know that topic, I don't have to watch that. You can skip right to the one that you need to know. So it's kind of like just-in-time learning. And for a point of comparison, it's not really apples to apples, but here's some statistics comparing this kind of video content with traditional lecture capture content. So here you can see this learning module is 9 minutes long in 8 chapters with 82% playthrough. Here's a couple other pieces of content with statistics from the same data pool, the same set of students. Now, the first one you can see is 34 continuous minutes. Professor talking 34 minutes straight. We have a playthrough ratio of 31%. So only 31% of the students who started watching it watched it all the way through, and you can see that it drops off pretty quickly. And the same thing with the next one too. I just wanted to show it's not exactly apples to apples, but we have a much lower playthrough ratio, which means that the students are staying engaged for a lot less period of time when you look at the entire duration of the video. So here's a chart from a blog post that I read that kind of backs up the same thing that we're seeing. This is done by a sampling of about 1,000 different videos on average, comparing the length to playthrough ratio. So you can see this first line where the video is under 1 minute. You can see that about 60 to 70% of people made it all the way through that. But if you look at the very last one, that red line where it's 60 minutes plus, the attention just drops right off pretty quickly, it just plummets, and you only have about a 20% playthrough ratio. So this next lesson, telling stories, this is one about keeping students engaged too, which is if you're creating video content, try to incorporate some anecdotes into it, some stories, because students will stay more engaged if you tell stories, if you incorporate stories into them. So rather than just having a straight data dump of here's the information, make it relevant, make it something that they can take home. And measure and tracking. So this is a favorite one for me, is sharing with other people. How do you share with other people success of the video content? How do you communicate the value in it? This is one thing that I think Kaltura does a great job of, where you can see pretty detailed information of who watches what, when, and for how long. So you can show other people, look, here's the retention rates. Here's how long students are staying engaged for. So that's quantitative information. But another thing that's valuable for other people to hear about is qualitative information. So one way to do that is to ask students, send out maybe very short polls at the end, or questions after they finish watching it. Did they find that video content helpful? Here's a result that I think is pretty interesting from a recent poll that we did of our Fast Track MBA students, which was, in this course, what content did you find the most helpful? And you can see that the video content was highly rated above other asynchronous content. So this last lesson about empowering others, I think, was a good one for us to learn, which was, once we started creating content that people saw the value in, we got a lot of demand from people to create video content for them. And one way to address this is actually to share with other people what you learned and to show them how to do it themselves, right? So we realized pretty early on that we couldn't keep up with the demand of people who wanted to create video content. So what we did was we created a space called the Media and Design Studio, where students, faculty, and staff who want to create video content can come and consult with students who know how to do it. And it's been very successful. We started in September of this year, and we have over 108 recorded scheduled appointments that were made over the semester, and 172 drop-in visits.